The night the plane took her to the wrong destination, Kahinde Adeyemi finally realized that stolen blessings
Oh no, what
never
have I
travel
done? I
smoothly.
betrayed my
But
sister
by
for this
then,
trip,
it was already
and
too
now I'm
late.
trapped.
The aircraft doors had closed, the engines had roared, and the lie she had built her future on was already flying 30,000 feet above the earth. Yet the story did not begin on that plane. It began months earlier in Lagos, in a crowded two-bedroom apartment in Surulere, where two identical twins lived completely different lives. If you looked at them side by side, you would swear they were the same person. Same oval face, same almond eyes, same smooth brown skin, same soft dimples when they smiled. But if you spent just 10 minutes with them, you would quickly realize they were nothing alike. The elder twin, Taiwo Adeyemi, was known among neighbors as the good one, quiet, responsible, respectful. She worked at a small accounting office on Adeniran Ogunsanya Street, earning barely enough to support herself and their widowed mother. Taiwo believed in patience, she believed in hard work, and most importantly, she believed that God rewarded honesty. Her sister, Kahinde, believed in something else entirely: soft life. While Taiwo spent evenings doing overtime calculations, Kahinde spent her scrolling Instagram, watching influencers pose beside luxury cars and Dubai skyscrapers. Every day she repeated the same sentence: I refuse to suffer in this country. Their mother, Mama Adeyemi, would often sigh when she heard it. Kahinde, life is not a competition. But Kahinde would roll her eyes. Mommy, it is, and the poor people are losing. Taiwo would just shake her head gently. Kenny, stop chasing shortcuts. Kahinde always laughed at that. Shortcuts are the fastest way to success. That belief would soon destroy everything. One humid Lagos afternoon, Taiwo walked into the apartment holding a white envelope. Her hands were shaking. Mommy, Kenny, I have news. Kehinde barely looked up from her phone. Did they finally increase your salary? Taiwo smiled nervously. No. Mama Adeyemi leaned forward. What is it? Taiwo opened the envelope. Inside was a passport and a visa stamp. I'm traveling to Dubai. The room went silent. Kehinde's phone dropped from her hand. What? Taiwo explained quickly. One of her company's foreign clients, a Nigerian billionaire businessman living in Dubai, had visited the Lagos office. His name was Tunde Balogun. During his visit, Taiwo had helped resolve a serious accounting issue that saved his company millions. Impressed by her intelligence and humility, he had made an unexpected offer. He wanted her to come to Dubai and work directly for his company. All expenses paid, visa arranged, salary 10 times what she earned in Lagos. Mama Adeyemi began to cry. God has remembered us, but Kehinde's mind was spinning for a completely different reason. Dubai, the city she had fantasized about for years: luxury, money, influencers, soft life. And now her quiet, boring sister was the one going there. It felt unfair, painfully unfair. That night, as Taiwo slept peacefully, Kehinde stared at the ceiling. A dangerous thought slowly entered her mind. They were identical twins. Same face, same height, same voice, same everything. And the visa had Taiwo's picture. But the immigration officer in Dubai had never met Taiwo before. Her heart began to race. What if, she whispered to herself. Then she quickly shook her head. No, that's crazy. But the idea refused to disappear. Instead, it grew stronger, louder, more tempting, until finally a cold smile spread across her face. Soft life doesn't wait. 2 days before the flight, Taiwo packed her suitcase carefully. Mama Adeyemi helped fold clothes while giving endless advice. Remember who you are. Don't let money change you. Taiwo nodded. Yes, mommy. Meanwhile, Kehinde watched everything quietly, studying, calculating, planning. The night before the trip, Taiwo placed her passport and visa on the bedside table before going to shower. That was the moment. Kehinde walked into the room slowly. Her heart pounded violently. She stared at the passport. Just one decision, one small switch, and her life would change forever. She whispered softly, "Sorry, sister." Then she took it. The next morning at Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Taiwo hugged her mother tightly. "Take care of yourself." Mama Adeyemi smiled proudly. "My daughter is going abroad." Kahinde stood nearby, pretending to wipe tears. Inside, she was trembling with excitement because the passport in her handbag had Taiwo's name, but the person boarding the plane would be Kahinde. Just before the boarding announcement, she pulled Taiwo aside. "Sis, can we talk?" Taiwo smiled. "Of course." Kahinde hugged her tightly, longer than usual. "I'm really proud of you." Taiwo laughed softly. "Why are you acting emotional?" Kahinde whispered. "Because your life is about to change." And in that moment, Taiwo had absolutely no idea how true those words were. Meanwhile, 30 minutes later, a boarding announcement echoed through the airport. "Passengers traveling to Dubai, please proceed to gate 14. Kahinde picked up her suitcase. Her heart beat wildly. This was it. The moment soft life finally began. But somewhere deep in her chest, a strange feeling stirred. A quiet warning. A whisper she ignored. Because greed was louder. If you're enjoying the story so far, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Because what happens next, no one at that airport could have predicted. Not Taiwo, not Mama Adeyemi, and certainly not Kahinde. Because the plane Kahinde boarded that morning was not going to Dubai. When Kahinde Adeyemi finally settled into her airplane seat, her heart was beating so loudly she was sure the passengers around her could hear it. Seat 34, a window seat. Exactly the type she had imagined while watching countless travel vlogs on YouTube. Outside the window, the runway lights of Murtala Mohammed International Airport stretched across the night like glowing ribbons. For a moment, she felt powerful, victorious. She had done it. She had outsmarted fate. While her boring sister, Taiwo, would remain in Lagos living a modest life, Kehinde was now on her way to Dubai, the land of luxury cars, rich men, and endless soft life. She leaned back in her seat and smiled to herself. "From Surulere to Dubai," she whispered. It sounded beautiful. It sounded like destiny. But destiny was about to laugh. The plane taxied slowly across the runway. Passengers chatted quietly. A crying baby somewhere in the cabin made tired passengers sigh. The cabin lights dimmed, then the aircraft finally roared forward. Kehinde felt her stomach jump as the plane lifted into the night sky above Lagos. Her entire body trembled with excitement. "This is it," she whispered again. She imagined arriving in Dubai. Tall skyscrapers, luxury apartments, designer clothes, maybe even marrying the billionaire client Taiwo had mentioned, Tunde Balogun. Kehinde had already started imagining how she would charm him. After all, they expected Taiwo, but they would get her instead, and Kehinde was far better at seduction than Taiwo ever was. She closed her eyes and smiled. But about 30 minutes into the flight, something strange happened. The man seated beside her leaned over slightly. "First time traveling?" Kehinde nodded proudly. "Yes." He smiled kindly. "Where are you headed?" She answered quickly. "Dubai." The man frowned. "Dubai?" Kehinde laughed. "Yes, Dubai." But the man slowly shook his head. "That's strange." A cold sensation crawled up Kehinde's spine. "What do you mean?" The man glanced at the flight screen mounted above the aisle. "Because this plane isn't going to Dubai." Her heart stopped. "What?" He pointed calmly at the digital display. And Kehinde turned to look. Her eyes widened. On the glowing screen were the flight details. Lagos to Istanbul, not Dubai, not even close. Her mouth went dry. "This must be a mistake," she whispered. But the man simply shrugged. "Maybe you boarded the wrong plane." Kehinde jumped up from her seat. Her chest tightened. "This is wrong," she muttered. She walked quickly toward the cabin crew. Excuse me, excuse me. A flight attendant turned to her politely. Yes, ma'am? Kahinde held up her boarding pass. This flight should be going to Dubai. The attendant examined it. Her expression changed slightly. Ma'am, this boarding pass is for Dubai, but you are currently on a connecting flight. Kahinde blinked. A connecting flight? Yes. Connecting to where? The attendant hesitated. Turkey. Kahinde's stomach dropped. Turkey? Yes. Her mind began racing. That was not what Taiwo had said. Taiwo's job offer had been directly to Dubai. So why was there a connection? Something suddenly felt very wrong. But before she could ask more questions, the attendant said gently, Please return to your seat. We will explain after landing. Landing where? Kehinde suddenly realized something terrifying. She had stolen the passport and visa, but she had never actually read the full travel itinerary. Taiwo walked into the bedroom she shared with Kehinde and immediately froze. Her suitcase was open. Her drawers were empty. Her passport documents were gone. Her heart began pounding violently. Kehinde! No answer. Her phone began ringing at that exact moment. The call was from the office. Taiwo answered nervously. Hello? Her boss's voice sounded confused. Taiwo, our client just called. Yes, sir? He says you missed your Dubai flight. Taiwo's body went cold. Missed? Yes. The airline says someone checked in with your passport, but never boarded the correct flight. Her hands started shaking. Kehinde, she whispered. Back on the airplane, Kahinde sat silently in her seat. The earlier excitement had vanished. Her chest was tight. Something deep inside her whispered a terrifying truth. This journey was wrong, very wrong. And the deeper the plane flew into the night, the stronger that feeling became. The man beside her spoke again. You look worried. She forced a smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't, because in that moment she realized something chilling. If this plane wasn't going to Dubai, then where exactly was her life heading? 3 hours later, the plane began descending. The captain's voice filled the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon be landing in Istanbul. Please fasten your seatbelts. Passengers prepared calmly, but Kehinde's breathing became shallow. Her heart whispered something she refused to accept. This was the beginning of consequences, and thousands of kilometers away in Lagos, Taiwo was about to discover the worst betrayal of her life. If you're enjoying the story so far, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories like this. When the plane's wheels finally touched the ground in Istanbul, the entire cabin erupted in the usual sound of landing. Seatbelts clicked, passengers stretched, overhead compartments opened, but Kehinde Adeyemi remained frozen in her seat. Her palms were sweating, her heart beat painfully against her ribs. Just a few hours earlier, she had been dreaming about luxury apartments in Dubai. Now she was staring through the window at a cold, unfamiliar airport, thousands of kilometers away from the life she had imagined. For the first time since stealing her sister's visa, a terrifying thought crossed her mind. What if this is a mistake I can't undo? Passengers began leaving the aircraft slowly. Kehinde followed them out into the terminal of Istanbul Airport. The building was massive. Bright lights reflected off shiny floors. Foreign languages echoed everywhere. She clutched the passport tightly. Her entire future was inside that small booklet. A man wearing a dark jacket suddenly approached her near the immigration area. Taiwo! Kehinde froze. He had called her sister's name. Yes, she said cautiously. The man smiled slightly. Good, come with me. Her stomach tightened. Who are you? Your transit coordinator. Transit? Yes, we have arranged the rest of your journey. Her brain struggled to process the words. This trip is supposed to be to Dubai. The man chuckled softly. Yes, eventually. Eventually? Something in his voice made her skin crawl. But before she could question further, he gestured toward a side hallway. As they walked through the quieter section of the airport, Kehinde's mind raced. This was not how Taiwo described the job. There was supposed to be a company representative waiting in Dubai, a corporate office, an accounting position, but this man looked nothing like a corporate staff member. He walked quickly, rarely looking back. Where are we going? She asked. Your next flight. To Dubai? The man paused briefly, then he looked at her carefully. You ask many questions. His tone was colder now. Kahinde forced a nervous smile. I'm just confused. The man stared at her face for a moment. Something about his expression changed. Suspicion. You are Taiwo Adeyemi, correct? Her heart skipped violently. Yes, but the lie felt heavier than before. While Kehinde walked deeper into a situation she didn't understand, her twin sister Taiwo was sitting on the edge of her bed in Lagos. The room was silent. Mama Adeyemi stood beside the door in shock. You mean Kehinde took your passport? Taiwo nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes. She went to the airport pretending to be me. Mama Adeyemi sat down heavily. That girl. Taiwo felt something worse than anger. Betrayal, the kind that cuts deeper because it comes from family. Her phone rang again. It was her boss. Taiwo, our client is asking questions. What kind of questions? He said the woman who checked in looked different. Taiwo's heart pounded. Different how? He says she seemed aggressive, not like you. Taiwo whispered quietly. That's because it wasn't me. There was a long silence. Then her boss sighed. I suspected something like that. Another voice suddenly came through the line, a calm male voice. Hello, Taiwo. Taiwo swallowed nervously. Who is this? My name is Tunde Balogun. Her breath caught. The billionaire client, the man who had offered her the Dubai opportunity. I'm sorry, sir. He spoke gently. You didn't board the flight. No, sir. Then who did? Taiwo's voice broke. My twin sister. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Kahinde followed the mysterious man into a private waiting room. Inside were three other young women. They looked nervous. One of them whispered quietly in a Nigerian accent, Are you also going to work in Dubai? Kahinde nodded slowly. Yes. But the girl shook her head sadly. That's what they told me too. Kahinde frowned. What do you mean? Before the girl could answer, the door opened. Two men walked in. One of them held a stack of documents. The first man spoke coldly. Listen carefully. The girls looked up. You will soon be traveling to your final destination. Kahinde raised her hand. Yes, Dubai? The men exchanged a glance. Then one of them laughed. Dubai? The room went silent. That's not where you're going. A wave of fear passed through Kahinde's body. Then where? The man answered bluntly, Eastern Europe. The words hit her like a slap. What? You will be working there. Working how? The men didn't answer immediately, but the other girls already understood. One of them began crying softly, and in that moment, Kahinde realized the horrifying truth. This wasn't a job opportunity, it was human trafficking. Panic flooded her veins. I'm not going anywhere, she shouted. The man stepped closer. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. She tried to run toward the door, but one of the men blocked her path instantly. Kahinde's mind raced. For the first time in her life, the dream of soft life felt like a cruel joke. She whispered desperately, I was supposed to go to Dubai. The man smirked. Many girls are told that. Her chest tightened painfully. This was the consequence. The price of stealing someone else's destiny. In a luxurious office tower in Dubai, Tunde Balogun stood by the window, looking down at the glowing city lights. His assistant spoke quietly. Sir, the airline confirmed something strange. What? The woman who checked in with Taiwo's passport boarded the wrong flight. Wrong flight? Yes, Tunde frowned. And Taiwo herself, she never went to the airport. Tunde was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly. Find out where that plane went. The assistant checked the records. It landed in Istanbul. Tunde's expression hardened. I have a bad feeling. Back in Lagos, Taiwo sat quietly beside her mother. Mama Adeyemi sighed deeply. Kahinde always wanted shortcuts. Taiwo wiped her tears. I hope she's safe. Despite the betrayal, despite the pain, Taiwo still loved her sister because blood was blood. But deep down, she also knew something else. Sometimes life teaches lessons the hard way. Hours later, the door in the Istanbul waiting room suddenly opened again. The trafficking men walked in quickly. Their expressions were tense. One of them spoke urgently. Authorities are checking flights. The girls looked confused. What authorities? The man cursed. Someone reported this route. He looked directly at Kahinde. What is your real name? She hesitated. The lie suddenly felt pointless. My name is Kahinde. The men exchanged another glance. You are not Taiwo? No. For the first time that night, the men seemed unsure because someone powerful had just begun asking questions, and that someone was already on the phone with international authorities. A man who didn't tolerate injustice. A man who had promised an honest young woman a better life. Tunde Balogun. 6 months later, the sun shone brightly over Dubai. Taiwo stood on the balcony of her new apartment overlooking the city skyline. The wind carried the distant sound of traffic far below. Her life had changed in ways she never expected. After hearing the full story, Tunde had personally arranged for her to travel safely to Dubai, not as punishment for her sister's actions, but as recognition of her honesty. And as for Kehinde, she had eventually been rescued during an international investigation into the trafficking network. But the experience had changed her forever. When the sisters finally reunited months later, Kehinde cried uncontrollably. I almost destroyed my life because of greed. Taiwo hugged her gently. What matters is that you're alive, Kehinde whispered quietly. I thought soft life was everything. Taiwo smiled softly. Real life is better. If you enjoyed this emotional story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Because sometimes the destination we steal from others is never the destination meant for us.